You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Broadcasting straight to you from a spaceship currently disrupting navigation on Flight 19 over the coast of Florida. Yeah, they're not going to make it home anytime soon. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Strange World, where the truth is often stranger than fiction. I'm your host, Mark Sargent, the creator of Flat Earth Clues, which propose that all of us are living inside a Truman Show enclosed structure, thousands of miles wide. Check it out at enclosedworld.com or just Google Flat Earth Clues. You can't miss it. Really, you can't. My good friend and personal wingman for the show, once again, is Jonathan from Jersey. How's it going, man?
Pretty good, man. Long time no speak.
Yeah, feels like we just did this, 24, 36 hours ago?
For me, it was, yeah.
Yeah. Before we bring in our special guests, I'd like to read, because, I get a lot of emails and phone calls, and every once in a while, someone will write something that I just look at it as going, wow, that's exactly the message I want to hear. So I got a message from a woman this morning. I would like to read it real quick in the email before I bring on Rob. Hello, Mark Sargent. Thank you for the prepper document. Just to let you know, it took me only a few days of listening to your clues in July and August before this dramatic shift took place inside me. I had these moments of catching my breath at the magnitude of the globe-Earth deception. Where is the end of this massive deception? It just goes on and on. I saw a few years ago that the moon landing was a hoax, 9/11, false flags, etc. I can't get away from this. I listen for hours per day and every day look for some of the latest news on the flat earth. I don't mean that I am in all ways enlightened, but it felt like a huge, brilliant light had been turned on. I am astounded that I have never thought about this before. I am a woman who watched the moon landing on television. I have a master's degree with focus on research and scientific methods, but my background was totally focused on healthcare. I have always had a great curiosity and maybe a little bit of intuition that things did not seem right. I find that my psychological and emotional being is somewhat changed. I feel calmer and feel increased gratitude. I feel increased joy. I am left to wonder about the psychological damage done by holding the wrong ideas instituted by the destructive action of deliberate being lied to by those who have the power of life and death over the residents of the earth. I feel as if I am recovering from this lying violence of the world oligarchy. I am so excited going forward and hope that the benevolence of the universe allows me to live long enough to see the transformation of Earth's people. Thank you again, and I won't mention her name because she didn't ask me and she probably doesn't even know. But thank you for writing that in. I thought that was beautiful. And I get letters like this quite often from people that just are profoundly hit, not necessarily by the stuff that I was doing, but just by the message itself, by the stuff that's everyone's being put out there. So with that, let's bring in our guest. His name is Rob Skiba. He is the author of Babylon Rising and The First Shall Be the Last and Archon Invasion. The Rise, Fall, and Return of the Nephilim. He is the host of the Revolutionary Radio Project, creator of Seed, the series, and he created one of the best websites you're ever going to check out if you're into Flat Earth, which is called testingtheglobe.com. Rob Skiba, thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, glad to have you back. Yeah, what we're doing, I forgot to mention. Sorry, Jonathan. Not only are you my good friend and personal wingman, but you also have your own show called Perceptions on late Thursday night on this very network.
Thursday night, Friday morning. My morning, your night.
Yeah. On East Coast, you start at midnight, which, where West Coast, it's at 9 p.m. But yeah, it's a great show. And we just had Rod on that show. So some of the stuff we're going to talk about, we're going to try not to repeat too much because a lot of the people that listen to this show also listen to yours. So we will, we'll repeat some stuff, but a lot of the stuff, let's just consider it a continuation of the last show. Agreed?
Sure.
I'm down with that.
Cool. So, Rob, Got a question for you, because there's, in fact, I probably should pull up testingtheglobe.com, and I probably will eventually. I'll wait probably to the first break, though, because, as you know, Windows 10 and Skype has a known issue, and if it dies, I'll be dropped off, and then Jonathan and you will just have to talk. Okay. But did you get, by chance, there's a couple things I want to ask you topic-wise. Did you get a chance when things were being passed around the internet to look at Wernher von Braun's headstone over the last month?
Yes. Yeah.
Where where it had, Wernher von Braun, for people that have missed history, was, he predates NASA. Not only, he was one of the founding members and instrumental in creating NASA, but he, he worked for the Nazi war machine back in World War II. And his headstone is remarkably small. There's not much to it. It's not like a picture of him holding a rocket looking at the sky or anything like that. In fact, there's very little cement. It's just a really humble headstone. But on it is a single Bible verse, Psalm 19:1, which I thought was very interesting because the Psalm 19:1 is, depending on what Bible you look, I'm going to use the King James, says, "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork." And I thought that was very interesting because, one, this is coming from a scientist. There's some scientists that go to church, of course, but this was the quintessential rocket scientist. When everyone uses that joke, you're either a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist, this is that guy. And he mentioned Psalm 19:1. I thought that was very telling. You got any comment on that?
Yeah, I have heard different stories about him later in life, kind of changing his ways and, supposedly giving his life to God and spilling the beans on some things. And he had that interview with, I forget her name, something Ross or something like that. Dr. Carolyn Roslin. That's it. That's the one.
Carolyn Roslin?
Yeah, that talked about her interview or whatever. She had final words with von Braun before he died. She was like a personal secretary to him, something. And supposedly he laid out the whole plan that the global elite are trying to do.
Good morning. My name is Carol Rosin. In 1974, after being a sixth grade school teacher, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, "Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space." And I said, teachers don't stop until June. He said, "No, you have to understand. This is February, and we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies," he said, "against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system, the first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids." And then he would repeat to me over and over, "And the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat." Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And now we hear in the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies. This is a system, he told me, that would never protect anyone. Even back then, he talked about suitcase bombs. He talked about chemical, viral, bacterial, biological warfare, that these space-based weapons would never protect us against. And then he told me that, in fact, if you travel around the world, which I did after he died in 1977, I met with people in over 100 countries who were friends. They didn't want to build space-based weapons. I became a space and missile defense consultant. And I worked with people around the world. I became an advisor to the People's Republic of China. They don't want to build a space-based weapon system. And he told me back then that they didn't. He said, "Go to Russia. They're considered to be the enemy." I got on a plane by myself. When I got to Russia, I had a list of people that I had read out of the newspaper. Chernenko was in office then. He was the only one I didn't get a chance to meet. They introduced me to everyone when I got there. And when I got back, I said, "Oh my Lord, this man is telling the truth." Is no threat, and I've been waiting until this day for 27 years, and I'm expecting the spin to happen, because he also explained to me that as a military strategist, as a person who worked on the MX missile, which I did later, he said, you will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons. And now we should expect the spin, because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie.
What I found, kind of as a side note of interest in this regard, we talked about on the show we did with John the other day, that show on Netflix, Ascension. And in the beginning, the first episode, there's this young kid who's like a reporter, journalist type of kid, and he goes to this sort of nursing home place and finds this aged Project Paperclip former Nazi, NASA scientist, and the guy's got like dementia in bed, and he's kind of babbling to himself and whatever, and he makes a statement about the vaulted dome. I think it was either vaulted dome or
interesting
the heavenly shield. I forget how he was quoting. Loosely quoting scripture in sort of this babble speech that he was kind of, rambling.
The quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven upon the places.
He was agitated earlier. That's why we called. His visitor seemed...
Visitor? I'm his only visitor, and he barely knows I'm here.
Beneath me, beneath you, beneath the vault of heaven, we make all anew.
Dad. Can you talk to me for once?
I don't know the man, but he's still on the grounds. I passed him just outside talking on his phone.
I still need more information.
Why are you harassing my father?
You're the son. Hers. Look, I'm really sorry about what your father's going through. The stroke and what it's done to him, it must be hellish to see him that way. I'm Mark Hayes. I didn't mean to upset him. I've admired Dr. Hensman for years. I'm doing my dissertation on his work.
You're an academic.
Yeah. I'm finishing my PhD on the history of the early space program. It's tragic to me that most people don't know who your father is. He inspired me.
He inspired me, too.
I guess it's kind of hard to top a dad who escaped from the Nazis and then developed rockets for NASA, huh?
He makes a statement which sets, if you know the show, sets the stage for, there's nowhere to go. We can't go up, we can't go out. And the very end of that first season, basically, the people on the ship were a grand experiment, and this girl starts to manifest some sort of supernatural powers. And through these supernatural powers, one of the astronauts on this alleged spaceship is basically supernaturally transported like through a wormhole, warp, or whatever, and ends up, it looks like, on Mars. Yeah. But from the beginning of the show to the end of it, this whole idea of this vaulted dome over us is prohibitive. We can't get out of here that way. Yeah. So the next logical way then must be through a portal or some sort of interdimensional pathway. Yeah. So real interesting. I don't know what to make of the Werner von Braun stuff, at least in his later years, but during his NASA years, I mean, right here we're right in the middle of the space race, allegedly, with Russia, and he goes down to Antarctica with a bunch of other Nazi. No, I get them mixed up now. Nazis and NASA, because they're pretty much synonymous.
Good one, yeah.
These somebody said NASA stands for Nazi American Space Apes. It's appropriate, but I mean, he's down there in Antarctica looking for moon rocks. Now, I'm saying, wait a minute. We haven't, at least at that point, we hadn't even been to the moon. So it's not like you could pick up a rock and turn it over and it says made on the moon. So how are you going to know the rock that you're holding? You have no litmus test to prove that the rock that you have is a moon rock, and yet they're down there collecting moon rocks before we ever allegedly went there.
Yeah. Yeah, I had heard rumors as well that even before I was delving into this, that the rocks, that would be a great place to grab rocks because it was such a unique continent. If you were going to fake moon rocks, you want to go somewhere where nobody's been to actually get rocks. And that was the place. It's like, just dig up on the ice. They're going to be unique compared to just about anything where we are. It's not like you can grab them, from the Phoenix Desert or somewhere in New Mexico, wherever they're filming the Mars rover stuff.
Yeah.
So, people can take that verse on his headstone different ways. And for me, I'm going to go with the silver lining, and that is that he knew, of course, which he would have, he would have known the entire time what exactly the world looked like. And that he was like just kind of throwing this out there. It kind of at that, from the grave, obvious play on words, but it's true. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to, my last words, my last thing on my headstone, I'd probably put in a sealed envelope is about the firmament. Why would you talk about that? It for me, it's like, it's a little bit of a giveaway. I would hope that he, his conscience was getting to him towards the end. But I got to mention the Ascension thing that you brought up. Ascension, because I was thinking about it, I was going, wow, what a cruel thing to do to those astronauts. For those of you who have not watched Ascension, the short series from the Sci-Fi Network, it's a really, really interesting little mini series. But how long was that mission? Like 50 years, 100 years?
It was 50 years. 50. I think it's meant to be 100 years. I think the third generation was supposedly going to be there, so it was like this grand generational experiment.
Yeah. So the whole premise, and I'll give spoilers away because you still should watch it, even if you know what's going on. And that is, if they create a giant rocket ship, and they wanted to see what and it was going to be this massive mission, 50, 100 years to whatever the nearest star was.
Our eyes must be focused on the stars if we are to have any hope of surviving this arms race, this space race, indeed, this human race.
Have you seen Lorelei? No. I'm sure she's around somewhere.
Esteemed colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Ascension.
And what they did was the rocket didn't go anywhere. They just put it in this giant hangar and simulated the stars with these massive planetariums all around it, so that if you were on the bridge of the spaceship, you didn't know if you were in real space or not. And I thought, wow, that's awful. But at the same time, if you're going to, and the whole purpose was they wanted to test people in long-term space situations to where there was multi-generations of people living in space. And if you're going to do that, you really can't tell them. Because if you do, it takes, like the guy said at the end of the first season, it takes away it. Once they figure it out, the whole thing falls apart. Mm-hmm. Because psychologically, then they don't care anymore. It's like, well, we're in a studio anyway, so who cares? We're just going to be living in this place for 50 years. Putting them out in space, it's a whole different aspect.
I think it was episode 2 or 3 where this lower level mechanic guy or whatever causes some trouble, and they have a fight. And basically, to end the fight, the guy who was fighting with him sends him through the airlock, and he thinks he's being sucked out in space and he's dead. And so they show him getting sucked out. He's like, oh, and all of a sudden the scene goes from like stars to like rafters, and then he lands on like this inflatable bag, and he pick him up and take him away. And that's what I like jumped out of my chair watching.
Yeah, same here.
Like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You think I don't have total control? Every detail, from the movement of the stars to the flushing of the toilets, is exactly as it would be on the real journey. The minute they doubt the validity of their environment is the minute the experiment fails.
It is magnificent.
It's more than that. Ascension is a lifeboat for humanity.
Yeah, as soon as I saw him land on that giant black airbag, I was going, oh. It's a fake. It's a con, and it's great. And then I got it because again, it was recommended to me by a flat earther, and because I wasn't figuring it out. I was like, why am I watching this? And then I see it, and as soon as I saw those double planetariums that kind of fit over the bridge of that thing like a clamshell, that was a great shot, and I used that in one of the Strange World intros, and not a lot of people got it. They didn't understand, and it's like, no, it's from Ascension. Watch it if you get a chance. It's totally worth it.
I feel like such an odd man now because now I have to watch this.
Yeah, even with the spoiler alerts, we're putting out spoilers here. It's still a cool show, very thought provoking.
By the way, I always ask for spoilers, especially if it's an intelligent thing I'm looking for, like you guys are discussing. I don't want to listen to the fluff because a lot of times I'll watch things and fast forward.
Oh well, yeah.
Because it's always the same. It's always the same story. It's like opening scene, and then blah blah blah. I love you, and then blah blah blah. Let's go chase him, and then blah blah blah. The end. You know what I mean?
You have in fact you have a special app. You listen to YouTube videos fast forwarded.
Well, yeah. Anybody who listens to YouTube in HTML5, HTML5 instead of Flash, it gives you controls for speeding it up to 2 times. The speed,
is that the farthest you can go, or can you really crank it up?
No, at that point you're listening to Alvin and Chipmunks on speed.
So, I gotcha.
Yeah, maybe 1.5. Yeah. So
got it. A couple other things, Rob, I wanted to bring up. One was I wanted your opinion on, because I know you were kind of a follower of Kent Hovind, yeah, or maybe still are.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Can you give me a kind of background of what you were kind of did that start you down a certain path, and have you been kind of up to date on what he's been kind of talking about now since he got back?
Well, it's got to be pretty weird for him because he was out of the loop for 9 years, and he was totally framed. A lot of people think it was tax evasion, but they're ill-informed. They don't. That's not the truth. He did a show on Canary Cry Radio, which is what introduced me to you, those guys over there. So for people who don't know, they should listen to the interview that Canary Cry Radio did with Kent Hovind on the whole issue why he ended up in prison. But the guy's in prison for like 9 years. And he comes out, and he's getting flooded with emails on flat Earth. Yeah. And all I had when I first saw that this was happening to him, all I could think of was a scene in Return of the Jedi where Han Solo has just come out of carbonite, and he's put in the prison with Chewie, and Chewie's talking to him. He goes, "Luke's a Jedi Knight." He goes, "Oh, I'm out of it for a little while. Everybody has delusions of grandeur, That's what he's got to be thinking. Wait, I'm out of it for a little while. What the heck's happened? Everybody's talking about flat Earth, I was kind of cracking up about that, but he came through my little Baptist church in Chicopee, Massachusetts, probably 25 years ago, you
actually saw him?
Oh yeah, I met him a long time ago.
Okay.
And he does a whole series on creationism versus evolution. It's outstanding. Yeah. And he had like this shows you how far back it goes. He had a 12-part VHS set.
Yeah.
That I got, and I had dubbed the VHS to audio cassette so I could listen to it in my car back in the cassette days. And so he was real big on all that stuff. He taught me a lot of things regarding taking the Bible literally and things like that, which is what got me in trouble with this flat Earth thing, because as soon as I started to apply all those concepts that I was raised with regarding the Bible, I cannot get around the fact that it describes a snow globe. And so when he came out of prison and people started sending him stuff on it, I was like, because he's real big on saying you should take the Bible literally. Yeah. And even more specifically, the King James, which, the King James only group out there, you're hosed. If you're going to continue to say this is the authority of truth and you could take it absolutely literally, well, especially in the King James, you're in the snow globe, dude. I mean, because you can't take it literally and come up with a spinning heliocentric globe. There's no way you can. So, he's a very dogmatic, very stubborn, and I would say I probably am too. Once I'm locked into something that I believe to be true, you're going to be hard pressed to convert me to something different from what I believe. And he even said that in one of his. He's been doing a lot of YouTube videos since he's been out of prison, just from his home, and he even said, "Look, this is what I believe. This is what I firmly believe, and you're not going to change my mind." And my completely
that's a pretty good impression, by the way.
My completely humble and unbiased opinion, So when I listen to that, I'm going, I'm not ever going to be able to convince him, and neither are hardly anybody else out there. I would imagine he's just going to have to get honest with the text and look at it from an unbiased opinion as best you can, because he would make a point in the creation series that he did of absolutely demolishing the public textbooks, the science textbooks on the evolution thing.
Yeah.
But then when he said, regarding the Earth and geocentricity is hand in hand with flat Earth. And so, he was addressing questions on geocentricity versus heliocentricity and, of course, the flat Earth stuff. And he's like, we've all seen in the textbooks. I'm like, wait, the same textbooks? He's saying we've all seen the pictures in the textbook. I'm like, you mean the same ones that you spent your entire career debunking?
Yep.
So you gotta give the guy time, and if he's willing to look into it, I think he'll be a powerful force in this.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, what you just said there, give him time. I actually put that in one of his videos in the comment section on YouTube, because with the one where he was asked when he came out, and I actually thought about that thing too, the Han Solo remark, because when he comes out, he's sitting there, and I felt bad, because what did you expect him to say?
Right.
Honestly, he just got out,
right.
And he's being asked this, and I'm sure his initial response is, wait, flat Earth.
Can I ask you a question?
Who?
John.
Rob. Oh,
Rob.
yeah.
Rob. This is John speaking.
I know that. It's just who you're.
How many people are on this call? You bring up a good point. You just had me wondering. Now, we're just 3 Americans that are talking about this, and I guess I have 2 questions. One, are people like us in America pushing the flat Earth theory more than other parts of the world? And 2, you bring up the Bible. How do Muslims and other people believe, or do you know?
But yeah, there's something funny about that, because some of you guys and some of your listeners may have seen a YouTube video out there with a Muslim cleric saying that the Quran says that we're in a snow globe. Basically, I mean, he doesn't use those words, but he describes the Earth effectively as a snow globe. That the Quran teaches that, and so. In fact, I've had some people on my YouTube, as well as in the comment section on my Testing the Globe, saying, this is all from Islam, and why are you siding with Islam? I'm like, wait a minute. The Bible predates Islam by several hundred years. So this didn't come from Islam. Now, Islam, as far as the Quran goes, they call it, their word for our Bible is the book. And at least in the earlier sections of the Quran, they pay a great deal of respect to the people of the book and the book itself, and highly regard prophets like Moses and others. And these are the guys who are describing the snow globe. So as far as the Muslims goes, they're Johnny-come-lately to this as far as religious texts go. The Bible long predates that, but no, we're not the only ones. There's quite a few guys over there in the UK. And I think in Australia as well, out there talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
Let me chime in briefly on this. And South Africa, of course, and New Zealand, but to your point, the NASA has always been the whole concept of NASA has always been more skeptical outside of the United States. So I think in many ways they would have been way quicker to jump on this, because it would have validated the rumors and whispers of what they've been doing for a long time, what they've been saying for a long time. And I'll use the James Bond movie, Sean Connery, one of his later ones, Diamonds Are Forever, I think.
Yeah.
Where that's all done in the UK, where it is not just a little nudge and a wink. It is a blatant slap backhand in the face, where Sean Connery is escaping the bad guys, and he's running through a Hollywood movie studio, and he's running through a fake movie set, and it's got NASA logos everywhere. And the inside joke, which was great, was they go grab him, right? And the astronauts can't catch him because they have to stay in character, so they're running after him in slow motion, and they can't get to him, and he steals their moon buggy and runs away. And I thought that was brilliant. So yeah, I think other countries absolutely think outside of the United States. Oh yeah, I think they'd be way quicker to believe this, because why would you believe NASA? So anyway, sorry, go on, Jonathan.
Well, no, not just NASA, but I'm wondering, the reason I ask is because, there's so much turmoil right now in the Middle East. Like, when hasn't there been?
Yeah.
But does this give whoever discloses it, that country, a geopolitical advantage over other countries by now saying, okay, well, we discovered it, kind of like Columbus discovering America, so we're told. Therefore, we're going to set the rules of engagement, or where we go from here.
Interesting thought.
Uh, it would benefit anybody that was in the United States, I think, because the United States was the one that propagated the lie to begin with.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna go down that road, the Chinese can't do it, the Japanese can't do it, the European Space Agency can't really do it. It'd have to be, if it was going to be any one country, it'd have to be outside of the main NATO powers. Maybe
Well, I'm just thinking, what body do we know of that already uses the flat Earth as their logo that would disclose it?
I see what you're going. I see what you're doing there.
But do you see my point with all this? Because we're talking about the religious aspect of it and what the Bible confirms or states, and now like Rob just said about Islam or Muslims' belief with the snow globe. But now it's like, wait a minute, they were always talking about the beast, the coming of the beast and the Antichrist and the world powers and all that. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, if they now say that the world is flat, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, I think you got something there. As a matter of fact, I didn't even think about that much when I was doing the clue. In one of the clues, when I was kind of hinting on how this thing could get revealed, I mentioned that the UN did it, and I wasn't really thinking of them at the time. I was just like, well, yeah, wouldn't that be a good thing? Because if you're going to do something internationally, you'd announce it at the UN. And what you're saying is that they may be the default people to, if anything's going to be revealed, that they would be the group, because who else would you pick?
Well, at this point, because everybody would be like, well, why does NASA get to make the rules again? Why does there have to be another Cold War situation?
Yeah.
So now, if it's a world body, they're going to present it like, all right, listen, the next frontier is space, and we can't have the problems we've had here on Earth, having our separate differences. So therefore, we made this, world body, space, organization.
Yeah, and that would be, if I hate to say it, but that's a clever plot twist, because they already have, excuse me, they already have the flag.
Yeah.
So I mean, they could say, look, we always knew we were trying to, for your own good type of thing. We were always trying to protect you. We were always on your side. Because, yeah, if any one nation tried to come out and do it, there would be a bias from, this huge bias from all over the place.
Now, here's the excuse. Here's the narrative, too. I mean, if you look at the events, the last 30 years, the current events, including this Pope who's pretty liberal and yet progressive at the same time, they're going to roll it out and say, look, we had to consider everybody in the world, and that includes religion, that includes the economy. We didn't want anything to collapse. Okay, so they can even blame the collapse on it that's coming, the financial collapse.
Yeah.
And when they present it that way, they can then connect the dots for everybody to mentally draw a picture and say, oh, yeah, if you had revealed this in the 70s, we might all freak out. Or any other time would have been premature, and that they possibly took other avenues. I mean, I'm writing a cover story for the New World Order, so that makes me the shill, right? But I'm saying, no, we're talking about 7 billion people in the world, and sometimes I think when we talk in the first person, to say, I believe this, we kind of are a little insensitive to other people's beliefs. You know what I'm saying? I'm not defending or condoning those that,
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? I mean, this is a world issue now, and to now say that it's flat on top of it all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've had many people ask me, and I've been I haven't been shy in telling them, it's like, look, if you wanted to, and I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, not the devil himself, but if you wanted to create a new world order, and we'll turn it back to Rob here in a second. If you want to create a new world order, you'd want to wait until something like social media was in place, not just the internet and not just high speed internet, but social media. Because it's instant and it's addictive and everybody's in it. Social media is so intertwined, and there's multiple levels of it. So because you want to control the message of what's going out there, not just control the message, but control it instantly. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and I want to say one more thing before Rob talks. Rob, when you bring this, like, I'm not here to challenge even the Bible too or Christian beliefs. I'm just saying that those of us that do believe, or if we, you believe the Bible, really, you don't have to worry either way because you're already doing what you believe. You know what I'm saying? If God appears or the Bible, plays out exactly the way it says it will, then you as a Christian are gonna prosper anyway because you were a Christian. But what I'm saying is, from a social structure, you see what I'm saying? Like, there's other things that I think need to unfold first, and how do you take care of everybody in that process?
I got you.
Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining it correctly.
You might be.
Like, no, if you're a Christian and you sit back and do nothing,
yeah,
right, and it plays out, then you win by default.
Well, this is what's interesting because there's sort of lines are being drawn in the sand here, because I as a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
with a very public ministry, and talking about flat Earth, all of the other, not all, but the vast majority of the other guys out there who are aware of who I am, and I've traveled in some of the same circles some of these other guys do. I'm the village idiot in the crowd.
Okay.
I'm the freaking Fruit Loop, freak out there talking about flat Earth. And it's like we got to make this guy disappear because he's giving us a bad name. Kind of thing.
Right.
So there's all these hit pieces coming out in blogs and Facebook posts and YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff where these other quote unquote ministries are out there assaulting mine. And what I'm saying is, and when I said it on John's show the other day, and I posted this on my Facebook page, I'm like, look, if you're going to say you believe the Bible and you're going to say you take it literally, then do so. Otherwise, don't say that. Because all I'm trying to do is do exactly what I've always said, that I believe it and that I can take it literally. So, I'm just, there was a website out there that did a blog and it said, okay, fundamentalists, have the courage of your convictions. In other words, if you're going to say you're a fundamental Bible believing Christian and you believe it is true and you're going to take it literally, then do so. Don't make all the excuses for why you're not going to.
I have a point before Jonathan chimes in again, and that is I want to ask you, Rob, because I think it's very, very interesting, because I grew up with very similar Christian backgrounds, and I think and if you're a big, let's put it this way, I followed the Book of Revelations for a long time, and the people that follow, this as well as anybody, the speculation on the Book of Revelations runs, in all sorts of directions, and it gets pretty wild sometimes, because the Book of Revelations is very, very dynamic and active book. A lot of stuff happens. It's the Act 3 of Act 3s, and people you can talk about that all day long. And say, 100-pound hailstones and the seven scrolls and the trumpets and the moon turning, all the different stuff that happens. But no, as soon as you bring up flat Earth, no, that's nuts. Everything else you talk about, every other story in Scripture, you can, I'm preaching, no plan words, I'm preaching the choir here, but everything else is fair game except for that. And okay. I think that's amazing to watch.
Well, Revelation, depending on what kind of denominational background you come from, it's taken from everything from a preterist view, which is it's already happened. The historians will say, this stuff was all fulfilled by 70 A.D. Yeah. Then you'll have others that will take everything completely, totally symbolic. It's all allegorical. And to be fair, a lot of it is written that way. However, my position has been, I'm going to take it literally unless it tells me not to. For instance, when Jesus says, I'm going to tell you a parable, well, okay, he's telling you an allegorical story. He's going to use metaphor. Yeah. When John sees this weird, freaky beast with 7 heads, it's a strange looking thing, but then an angel shows up and says, okay, by the way, John, this is what it means. So usually when the Bible is speaking in symbolic or allegorical, metaphorical terms, it tells you that it's doing so. And so unless another character shows up and tells me that that's how I should take it, I'm going to take it literally. And the problem is when you get to the Book of Revelation, especially as it pertains to this particular issue, right off the bat, you get into problems like Revelation 1:7. Behold, he cometh with the clouds, and every eye shall see him.
Yep.
Okay, every eye. That's everybody who has eyeballs going to see him when he shows up. And I created a meme a while back on Facebook with the globe and Jesus appearing on the other side of the globe, and I put a circle over.
Oh, that's pretty funny.
I put a circle over the continent of Africa, which is the side facing, you. And I said, explain to me how exactly is that going to work out for these guys? Because millions of them still don't yet have TVs, iPhones, and the internet yet. And I know because I was a missionary for 6.5 years, and I've been to places where they don't have these things, and there's still lots of places that don't have them. So even if he shows up on that side of the globe, then how are the people in Central and South America, and places like that going? It's not going to work. And they said, well, maybe he's got a round trip around the world. Look, it doesn't say that. From my reading of it, he's got a direct flight from the clouds to the Mount of Olives. So, you got a big problem. But that's a minor problem. Yeah. You have a whole lot of apocalyptic text, like in the book of Isaiah, talking about in chapter 34, verse 4, and all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down, like as a leaf falls from a vine, and a fig falling from a fig tree.
Yep.
Wait, what? You're telling me the stars and the galaxies and nebulas and all that stuff is all going to fall to Earth? Maybe I misinterpreted Isaiah. Okay, fine. Then when you get to Peter, 2 Peter 3:10, it says, the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night, in which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat, and the earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Revelation 6:4, the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together. And then the best one is you got Jesus in Matthew chapter 24, beginning in verse 24 through 31, talking about great signs in the heavens and stuff like that. Verse 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Revelation 6:13, and the stars of heaven fell onto the earth. Okay, if the universe is as Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson and all these guys, if that paradigm is true, we've got a big problem when Betelgeuse and Arcturus and Pollux and Andromeda are headed our way.
Well, by your description right there, it sounds like somebody hit the glass ceiling and it all came crumbling down.
Bingo. And this is the thing that, this is a whole paradigm shift. I mean, once your eyes are open to this, you're going, well, yeah, but you play all the yeah, but games. And as you start looking through the yeah, but game and trying to figure out how is that going to work, like, for instance, I read to you the stars are all going to fall to the earth. I mean, you got Isaiah saying it, you got Peter saying it, you got John, you got Jesus Christ himself, Yeshua, the Son of God, saying it. Okay, so these are some pretty powerful witnesses if you believe the Bible is true.
Yeah.
And so, and when you got the Creator himself saying, yep, the stars are going to fall to earth, that's not going to, first of all, are you telling me, we got the NASA coming out with Earth 2.0, we found another Earth in the Goldilocks zone and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So you're telling me all of these other potential Star Trek civilizations in the universe are all going to be burned up because of my sin? Okay. Really? You run into some really crazy problems when you start going down that path. And even worse, when you think about, cosmologically, these, if all those stars are up there are suns like our sun with planets going around them, then when they start coming towards us, that's a bad day for everybody.
Yeah. And can I just say one thing? What I was trying to bring up, the reason I brought it up is because, I'm seeing, and as you all know, the infighting between the flat earth community, right, with just different factions. I'm just wondering how this now presents to anybody who's challenged by Christianity to then look into it and say, oh, well, this is a Christian thing now. It's not, you know what I mean, across the board.
I don't consider it a Christian thing. I mean, yeah, you're right, because there's some people that put the flat earth into two camps. They either put it into...
Yeah, I'm not saying it's that way. I'm just saying by what Rob's saying, or you know what I mean?
Well, it's not just a Christian thing, because, well, first of all, it would be more of a Hebrew thing.
There you go.
Because we're talking in the Old Testament, before Christianity, it's in your face, flat earth, enclosed, snow globe. Yeah. But it's not just the Hebrews. Because if you start looking into the ancient texts of the Babylonians, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, and even the Greeks,
true.
In the pre-Hellenistic kind of time frame, in the early Greek understanding, you still got the snow globe. Same thing in the Scandinavian, Norwegian, the Asgard, Thor, all that stuff. I mean, it is a worldwide understanding in the ancient world.
But again, do you think maybe they've picked this current pope because, like I said, he's made a lot of statements that even the Catholics are a little concerned or upset about, and saying, I don't know what to believe in this guy, that they have the right person now to present possibly the flat earth to the world, because I think he's accepted every religion as equal.
Oh,
well, he's doing some really interesting things, that's for sure. And
do you want to expand on that?
Well, Tom Horn, Chris Putnam, and others have done quite a bit of research, so they would be the go-to people on it. But there's a book, Petrus Romanus, talking about the final pope and the prophecy of the popes, and Malachi, Martin, all this stuff. He's doing some really interesting things to unite everybody. I mean, there's something like 40,000 Christian denominations. I mean, I grew up Baptist, but even in the Baptist, you've got multiple subsections of that. I mean, we were fundamental independent, and I would say legalistic King James only Baptists. You had the Southern Baptists. There are all these different factions just within Baptists. But then you got Methodist, Presbyterian, and this guy, and most of these so-called Protestant denominations were very anti-Catholic, at least when I was growing up.
Yeah.
But now,
Mark and I are members of the Judean People's Front.
No, it's the People's Front of Judea.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I thought you guys were Jesuits.
Splitters.
Nice. Hey, hey, Rob, real quick, because I don't want to lose this while it's in my head. Because a lot of people don't know, and you probably know about more than me. The prophecy of the number of popes and the last pope.
Yeah.
Can you do you got a Reader's Digest version of that in your head?
Not really. I mean,
this was supposed to be the last one, right?
Yeah. If the research that Chris Putnam and Tom Horn did with Petrus Romanus is true and it bears out, and it seems like a fair amount of what they were saying and had even predicted to happen is. For me, it's off my radar. That's not.
It's not your.
I'm not. Yeah. I mean, popes do what popes do, and I've never been overly interested in what they do. So
sure.
It's not been anything that I've really been tracking with. Although I am taking notice of the fact that a lot of even in the so-called Protestant denominations are linking forces with him and saying, we are all one and blah, blah. No, Christian is a very loose term. In fact, I don't even really like to apply that term to myself anymore. And not because I have anything against Jesus Christ. I absolutely love him with all my heart. His name really is Yeshua. The name Jesus is barely even 400 years old. That's a whole other issue. But what I have noticed in my own research is that Christmas has nothing to do with his birth. In fact, yesterday was Happy Birthday, Jesus. Yesterday, September 11th, was the birth of Christ. And that's easily verifiable with software as well as Scripture.
That's interesting.
I did not know this.
Yeah, I meant to say it when we were talking on the air when we crossed over midnight. I was going to say, "Hey, happy birthday, Jesus!" But yeah,
I don't think anyone would have got it. But
yeah, well, the cliff note of the cliff note on that is Revelation 12:1-5 gives a stellar alignment that herald his birth, and it's a woman clothed with the sun, 12 stars at her head, and the moon at her feet. The woman is Virgo, the sun's in her belly, the moon's at her feet, and the stars of Leo, and a couple of the planets are above her head. That exact stellar alignment happened at only one time in human recorded history, and it was for 80 minutes. For only 80 minutes in all of recorded human history was that alignment exact, and that was on September 11th, 3 BC.
Wow.
That makes a lot more sense. I've heard this before, too.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You can download the software Stellarium from stellarium.org and check it out for yourself. I give whole directions in my book on how to do it step by step, but so I'm looking at standard Christianity today, and it looks nothing like the followers of Yeshua in the first century. Yeah. So for that reason, I'm like, I don't think I even want to be called a Christian simply because what we think of as Christianity today looks nothing like the Christianity of the Bible. But it's everything that this Pope is trying to pull together. I mean, the Catholic Church is responsible for changing the Sabbath, for creating Christmas and Easter, which have nothing to do with our Savior. So, all of these things that the Catholic Church started, 300 AD and forward, that's what they're trying to rope everybody into in this kind of one happy family. And I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with that family because it has nothing to do with if I take the Bible literally, as I say I do, and it has nothing to do with anything I read there.
Yeah.
So I distance myself from that. But I mean, this Pope, like no other, has made major strides in bringing a sense of unity. But in my mind, it's the wrong kind of unity. But he would be an ideal candidate within the so-called framework of Christianity to make an announcement like that. Yeah, it's flat. We've always known it, and
Well, since we're talking about it, I might as well bring it up because then you probably know it's coming.
Wait! You're talking about the real Christ who's here to save us?
No, we're not talking about anyone that might have initials of who might sound like Lord Stephen Christ. No, we're not going to mention his name. Oh crap! Sorry. Are we really going to work him into every show? We probably will.
I didn't say it.
No, you didn't. I didn't. Technically, I don't think I said it either. I said we're not going to say it. He's going to hate us so much before this is over. Anyway, sorry.
FEMA camp for you, buddy.
The what?
FEMA camp for you, buddy.
Oh, have you already been condemned to the FEMA camp as well?
I don't know that I have been. I probably will be now that he hears this one. But I've seen anybody that he disagrees with, that's what he.
Yeah,
Steven signs them to the FEMA camps.
I want to have him on my show. I want to interview him.
Good luck with that. You don't want me as I'm not backing you.
Well, no,
up
you're
on
not
that one.
welcome.
No, I'm saying you do not want me as a wingman because no, well, do what you want. No, I was going to say that I finally got condemned just about a week ago when I tried to send him a nice email. I tried to say, hey, look, just so you know, we're not really picking on you, and I don't really hate the concave thing. At least it's not a globe. And he just tried to light me up like the 4th of July. Anyway, so. But I want to mention
the least amount of sense to me. The concave. I mean, people keep trying to get me to look into it, but
do you get emails all the time too?
Oh yeah, all the time. And almost every YouTube video I put up, there's at least 2 or 3 guys that are sending me concave stuff. And I'm not seeing curve either way. So
exactly. And I'm going. And my thing I sent to him and other people, anyone that emails me, I say, look, I don't hate the concave theory because it's a cousin of the flat Earth thing, but you got that problem of the ground sloping up, like you would in a Dyson sphere. If anyone remembers Star Trek: Next Generation, where Scotty from the old series was on there, and they basically they built a physical structure around a sun, and so the Earth was all the continents were on the inside. Which is really what he's saying. He's basically saying that we're living on the inside of a hollow Earth. But the problem is the land slopes up, and we would see that. We would see it very, very easily. But anyway, I don't want to. Let's not talk about that anymore. I blame you for this, Jonathan. No, I wanted to mention the Pope thing, which was because you were saying that if anyone's a likely candidate to do something strange, it'll be the Pope that we currently have. But I'm sure you get emails on this, and we've got a couple minutes to the break. Do you put any stock into the September 20 thing when he's coming to the United States and addressing Congress?
Oh boy, September 23rd through. I mean, really from the 15th to the 28th. There's a lot of weirdness. I don't know how else to describe it, but I mean, a lot of people talked on the backside of 9/11. People talked about all the memes that were in TV shows and movies and everything, kind of predictive programming and whatnot for 9/11.
Yeah,
and there's just been a ton of it for 9/23. And in fact, I was just watching the show The Whisperers the other day, and I forget, it was The Darkest Hour or Darkest something or other was the name of the episode. And there's a scene where this kid goes up into his dad's room and he's trying to get into his safe and he's thinking about what could the combination be, and he looks behind him and there's 3 baseball jerseys up on the wall. And the last 2 were something like 5-4 and 2-3. It was 17, 54, 2-3, I think were the 3 T-shirts.
Yeah.
And that's what he used for the combination. But 17 in Gematria, you kind of boil it down to the lowest number. So 1 + 7 is 8, which is a new beginning. 5 + 4 is 9. And then you got the 2-3. So it's almost like it's a meme, like a new beginning on 9-2-3.
Yeah. Yeah. We may actually cover this a little bit after the break because I keep getting emails now. It used to be every couple weeks and then it was every week and now it's every day. I get emails literally every day from, people saying, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think's coming? It's like, man, if the psychics don't know and the prophets don't know and nobody knows, then I don't know how much I can help you, but I can
do is guess. And it could be another one of those December 21st, 2012 deals. There's a lot
it's exactly. And let me do this. I'll kind of work into the break on this one, which is my big thing is I got burned so, I was let down so much. It was like a movie I was waiting to see and nothing happened on that whole December 21st, 2012 thing. I mean, I was into the Planet X stuff and the movie and I was all psyched up for it and, nothing came and I was like, oh, really? And then here we are 3 years later and we're talking about something completely different. But anyway, when we come back from the break, we're going to be talking, this is going to be part 3. With Rob Skiba and, of course, my wingman and sometimes sound editor, Jonathan. Welcome back. Where we left off was talking briefly, maybe not so brief, about September and what's going on. Because we were talking about the Pope and what makes this Pope different from others. Is he part of the prophecy? Is he the last Pope? If you believe in that, all the research that's been done, he does fit the qualifications, and he's coming to town. He's coming to the United States on September 23rd, and he's addressing Congress. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rob can chime in here in 1 second. But what I was going to say was that there's a lot of stuff that's happening in September, and that's just one thing, and that's what makes this different from what you were mentioning, like December 21st, 2012. Everybody knew the date. It's like, oh yeah, it's the Mayans, it's Planet X, it's the big, it's the black hole sun, it's the dark rift, it's all this other, but it was all basically one thing. Whereas September, when I keep asking everyone around with special abilities, especially including Jonathan here, no one can pin it down because there's so many things. And fill me in here. So is there something I missed? What was happening on the 15th?
Well, the 15th is, from a biblical perspective, and this is one of those areas of controversy as well, because it depends on how you reckon the calendar.
Yeah.
Now, biblically speaking, they'll go off the moon either being a conjunction moon or a crescent moon.
Okay.
If you're a conjunction guy, that's where there's the no moon. You can't see it. Mm-hmm. Then all the blood moon stuff that you're hearing about, the blood moon tetrads and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All the blood moon tetrad stuff are lining up with the feasts of God at the appointed times in Leviticus 23, the true holidays that God established.
Yeah.
The blood moons and everything line up with the dates if you're going off conjunction. If you go off crescent, which I do, then there's a mismatch on that. The blood moons aren't landing on those days, and the dates change. But I believe if you're a conjunction guy, then September 23rd is the Day of Atonement. For those of you, those out there going off the crescent, I believe the Day of Atonement is actually the 25th. Mm-hmm. So that's from sort of the Christian / Messianic worldview, Jewish worldview. Mm-hmm. That's why people are paying attention to these things, because some of these things, and again, it depends on which moon you're going off of, conjunction or crescent, as to why these days are significant.
Yeah.
So just playing loose with the dates from the 15th through about the 28th. The 28th is when the next blood moon's supposed to be. For some, that's the first day of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. For the crescent moon guys, the 30th would be. So, I mean, there's all these interesting dates, but because of all these mismatches and stuff like that, I'm kind of taking a step back and being really skeptical about a lot of it. And, Jonathan Kahn is out there talking about the Harbinger and the Shemitah, the 7-year cycle. Mm-hmm. And the problem I have with the 7-year cycle issues, because everybody's talking, this is a Shemitah year, and this is also a Jubilee year, so there's all this big, hoo-ha about that, and that's why the stock market and the U.S. economy is supposedly going to crash on the 23rd or sometime thereabouts.
Yeah.
There's all this doom and gloom, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. First of all, the Shemitah, biblically speaking, is supposed to be a good thing, not a horrible, terrible, bad thing that we should all dread. The Jubilee is even better. It's like, woohoo! I mean, these are times, biblically speaking, that you look forward to, that you celebrate, you're excited about. You're not stockpiling guns and ammunition and groceries and bunkering down and freaking out because you think it's the end of the world. I mean, it's everything for me is like all flip-flopped. Again, I'm looking at this is what the Bible says, and this is what Joe Blow, preacher, and everybody else is talking about. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. There's a lot of weirdness. We got Jade Helm down here in Texas, but from where I am in Texas, it hasn't affected us at all.
Yeah.
And I've said it before. I'm like, if anybody thinks they're going to go Red Dawn in Texas, that would be the worst place to try that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because everybody, grandma and the little kids are packing.
Oh yeah, Texas is a gun state. Absolutely.
Yeah, Wolverine. This would not be the place to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, you combine that, and people said, "Oh, it's Jade Helm, it's Jade Helm," and I keep, people have heard this from me before, but I'm going to say it again. That is, Jade Helm is not a standalone operation. It is not. You can't. Jade Helm would be something that would ride the back of something else. So yeah, if you had a major event, then you could throw in Jade Helm and make it very, very interesting. But Jade Helm isn't going to start a fire on its own. It'd be silly. You'd need way more troops than that. Way more firepower, and you wouldn't announce it. on top of it. You wouldn't be telling people about it, saying Jade Helm, we're going to do this.
This was announced well in advance, and all the public venues and everything. And so I've got friends down in Austin, police officers. I know people, current and former Special Forces guys, and I was asking them about it, and they're saying, well, it is unusual that it is a multi service activity. It's not just the Army or just the Marines or whatever. I mean, it's like everybody. Yeah. So that's unusual. It is unusual, the scale of it. When I was talking to one of my buddies, he says, we have to graduate Special Forces. We actually have to do this type of an exercise. But it was always up in like Georgia or somewhere, South Carolina or somewhere over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is much bigger. It is unusual in the size of it, as well as the, like I said, all the services being involved with it. But one of my buddies, who was former Special Forces guy, is now in the state militia, and he's like, and he's as every bit of a conspiracy-minded guy as I am. In fact, for me, that's my default. I assume conspiracy until proven otherwise these days. But he was like, look, the state militia, this is actually good training for us because we are being brought in and being trained as their opposition. So it's like, here's the state militia guys training against America's best, like the Rambos, so this is good training for them. Sure. And he's like, for us, we the reason we have a militia is because of a Red Dawn scenario, So he's like, I don't, there's nothing suspicious that I have seen. He says, you know me. He's like, I'm just like you. He says, if I see or hear anything, I'll let you know. And he hasn't. And so I'm not overly concerned about that. However, if we can just speculate, go wild here.
Sure.
If there is something planned, when you talk about Carol Roslin earlier in the show, and she was saying, the first it's going to be the Russians and terrorists, then asteroids will be the next in line.
Yeah.
In the planned conspiracy, and then of course aliens. There's some speculation that there may be an asteroid or comet or whatever headed our way. Also, Nibiru. I mean, everybody's
there. You go. Yeah, let's bring in Nibiru again. Yeah,
it might as well. I mean, in those scenarios, you may have seen some of the maps that people have drawn up. If the new Madrid goes and the San Andreas goes, what would the United States end up looking like after that? And basically, Tyler, Texas, which is about 3 hours east of Dallas, is beachfront property. You've lost a good amount of the East Coast, and of course, quite a bit of the West Coast is gone, and it looks radically different. And I'm thinking, okay, if something like that is coming, and I knew about it, I would try to put the best of my resources into a safe place.
There you go.
So, I'm kind of taking the other side of it, going, well, maybe these assets are being relocated here because this is actually safe ground. At least when you look at those maps, it is. And when I think of other things, I mean, there's a reason Texas flies its flag at the same height as the American flag, and as far as I know, we're the only state in the union able to do that. There really is a don't mess with Texas mentality around here. And I've often wondered if, a Red Dawn or a Civil War or whatever happened, that we wouldn't just throw up a big border all the way around the place and say, you guys do whatever you want. We've got our own grid. We've got our own resources,
Yeah, the Texas dream finally realized of being its own country.
Yeah, the Republic of Texas becomes its own sovereign.
Yeah, only took several hundred years to pull that off, but I'd be happy for you. It sounded like a good idea at the time.
Well, I got to say, I came here under I won't go into it, but I mean, certain circumstances brought me here to Texas. I lived in Massachusetts for 33 years. I didn't want to be here. After I came here to basically put my life back together because I was falling apart, I intended to go out to California, go make movies. But every time I tried to leave, literally, it was like I hit this invisible force field that just, like, I couldn't do it. Yeah. And I realized when I realized that, I'm just going to say, I believe God was keeping me here, I was like, okay, well, I'm stuck here. Yeah. But I kept meeting people with odd jobs when I first started trying to get work. I met so many people who were brought here from all over the country. One guy I was building bookshelves with on a freelance job, building a library. He says, I had a 6-figure job doing good. He was up in like Washington State or somewhere up there, and he just felt like he had to shut everything down and move his whole family to Texas. He's like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. All I know is that I couldn't escape that reality, that's what I was feeling led to do. And I met a lot of people like that. So, I'm not overly concerned about Texas. United States, I am concerned about.
Sure.
One way or another, we were headed down some scary paths.
Agreed.
So, all that to say, I'm not, I've got my ears and eyes open, paying attention regarding September 15th through the 28th. It's an interesting window of time with a lot of memes and things appearing to converge on that, specifically 9/23.
Yeah.
What the Pope's going to be doing here, what he's going to announce, I'm always suspicious about. I mean, especially when they build a telescope and the lens or whatever it's called a Lucifer telescope. I mean, really,
Yeah, not much imagination there. Yeah. And when people are telling me, the Pope's gonna be in town, it's going, yeah, I get it. But unless other people show up, unless it starts, a lot more converging happens, I'm not gonna really pay much attention. They said, well, Putin's gonna be here too. I go, all right, well, that's kind of interesting. And then somebody chimed in, I think a week or 10 days ago, I can't remember, Jonathan, but they said, oh yeah, by the way, the Chinese hierarchy, the president and the high leaders of China are going to be here at the same time. It's going, really? Because that doesn't help. That doesn't make me feel any better. And then of course in the background I always hear like a drum beat, CERN,
yeah, well,
CERN.
That one's a big one.
Yeah.
If I'm very concerned
I see what you
about
did there.
CERN because what was it, the Chilean earthquake or one of the big earthquakes was like 11 seconds after they fired off one of their big experiments.
Yeah.
And that was at a fraction of the power of what they're intending to do this month. And so there's in fact, Gons from Canary Cry, he's very much on the CERN watch. He's been doing a lot of videos on that on YouTube.
Yeah.
That is something to be legitimately, worldwide, whether it's globe, flat, or whatever. That's something to be concerned about, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. It's a device that we don't. Well, maybe somebody knows. Is what exactly is it doing? Is it splitting reality? Is it opening up a doorway to somewhere else? If you want to go down the biblical path, is it the opening of the bottomless pit?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard, you probably heard it too. I mean, the speculation on CERN has been rampant.
Yeah.
To the point, it's like, okay, I get it. It's a big thing, and we don't know exactly. And plus, there was that weird dancing ritual that somebody recorded on YouTube and put that. What was that about?
Yeah, well, they have outside their front entrance there, they have the dancing statue of Shiva, who is the god of destruction in Hindu mythology. So in what looks like, it's dancing inside a portal. So I mean, just do a Google Shiva plus CERN, and
great.
See it. So you got this dancing god of destruction inside a portal. When you listen to these guys, they don't sound like your typical scientific minded researchers and scientists. These guys sound like zealous religious cultist freaks when you listen to some of these guys talk. And that's what's scary, because I mean, these guys are like a whole organization of Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein people, dabbling in things that they don't know, they don't understand, and from their worldview, I do not come from an evolutionary worldview. I don't believe in the Big Bang and all that. They do.
Yeah.
So when you hear these guys who do believe in the Big Bang, that everything got here as a result of a microscopic dot exploding, and they say, well, we're basically trying to recreate the Big Bang. I'm raising my hand in the back of the room going, that doesn't sound like a good thing. If we got here because of a microscopic dot blowing up and you want to slam microscopic dots together to recreate a Big Bang, doesn't seem like that's going to work out too good for us.
Yeah. It is one of the weirdest things that I have ever. So in summary, what's kind of happened in the next starting 3 days from now and continue on to the rest of September? It sounds ominous. It kind of reminds me of an old Looney Tunes episode where Wile E. Coyote, and I'll have to dig up the episode because I just thought of it just now, where it was that final climactic thing where he's pushing all these things of dynamite and rockets, and he's getting everything into place, and nothing happens. Could it be that? because it feels like we're stacking up a whole bunch of stuff on top of each other. It's like, let's put everything precarious we can on the ledge of the world and see what happens, and because what's the worst that could happen here, when you do all these things? Is it a big ritual coming up? I don't know. I'd like to hope that nothing's going to happen, but
well, you do have that French foreign minister guy saying 500 days to climate chaos.
Right. Hey, okay. Well, what was that, by the way? I keep hearing little subtle things. People bring that up in other shows, and I only catch bits and pieces of it. What was that?
I'm not sure which YouTube video I did on it, but one of my Flat Earth series videos, I have it in there, because that's one of the things that caught my attention was Flat Earth always seems to come up in context with climate change.
Yeah.
If you don't buy into climate change, you must be a flat earther.
Yes.
I mean, there's plenty of other phrases and words you could use to call somebody an idiot.
Yeah.
So why does it always have to be that specific one for that very specific topic?
Yeah.
So that's what prompted me to want to look into that a bit. And I did a video on July 28th called Flat Earth ? What would be the motive for such a deception?
Oh, I remember that one.
Yeah, I believe it's in that one where I've got the clips, and it shows this French foreign minister guy standing next to John Kerry, and he's making this announcement about 500 days. We have 500 days to climate chaos.
We have 500 days to avoid climate chaos. Very important issue of climate change, climate chaos, and I said that we had 500 days to avoid climate chaos, and I know that President Obama and John Kerry himself are committed on this subject, and I'm sure that with them, with a lot of other friends, we shall be able to reach a success in this very important matter.
He didn't say, climate change or, it's like very definitive. There's going to be chaos with the climate in 500 days. So obviously they know about something that is planned. I mean, it has to be planned for them to be definitive about it.
Yeah.
And the only thing that I know of that's planned for the termination of those 500 days is CERN. So
that 500 days is it? Yeah, forgive me. When does that kick in?
Well, I don't quote me dogmatically on this. I don't know that it is the 23rd, but I seem to think when I looked at it last time that it was somewhere between the 23rd and 25th or something like that was the date that I believe CERN was supposed to kick off, and it was also just so happened to be at the end of the predicted 500 days.
Wow.
So, I mean, that is very concerning. Where you've got, this is, you got political leaders, and he's a French foreign minister. So, I mean, isn't CERN on the border of France and was it Switzerland or something?
Yeah.
Someplace. Forgive me, I don't have the geography.
Jonathan, look that up.
Geneva or someplace.
Jonathan, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, does France border? I don't even know. Does France border Switzerland?
I don't have to chime in all the time and ruin the show.
No, you're not. You're not ruining the show ever. Are you kidding? No. Look up where CERN is, because if I look it up, my machine will crash.
I just looked it up while we're talking. So yeah, it's somewhere on the border of France and Switzerland, I guess.
Okay.
I think it's an area of. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's an area of Geneva. So he's the right guy if it's CERN related. His country is part of or right next door to it. So, I mean, that's the kind of thing that really makes you kind of step back and go, what do these Luciferian freaks know? You know, there is a lot of weirdness going on, and it does seem to converge on September 23rd. And did you see the movie Tomorrowland?
I haven't seen that. Did you see it?
Wow. Holy cow. I mean, it's all over that movie. In fact, there's one scene where the main characters are talking, and they're saying something to the effect of, if you knew the exact date when, whatever is terrible, such and such a thing was going to happen, would you tell everybody about it? Something like that. And as they're saying that, right behind them, there's this sort of like digital screen with numbers on it, and 9:23 is there.
With every second that ticks by,
the future
is running out. Newton? If I could tell you the exact date that you're gonna die, would you want to know?
How would you know?
Let's just say I did.
What are you, psychic?
No, that's not the point.
Then what is your
This is
basis
a
for knowing it's a
hypothetical.
stupid
Or just
hypothetical?
use your imagination, all right?
All right.
Okay. Let's accept that there is a world where I know with absolute certainty the exact time of your death. Now, you want me to tell you or not?
Of course I would. Who wouldn't? But what if accepting my death is what causes it? So the answer is yes. I would want you to tell me. But I wouldn't believe you.
You have to believe me.
Why? Don't we like make our own destiny and stuff?
You know, like while they're saying it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, the climax of the movie, there's this kind of floating disc thing that has lines on it, the same type of lines that's on the UN flag, that grid with the 33 squares or openings. And so there's this disc with the 8-spoke wheel kind of deal on it. And they're on the main kind of climax battle of the film takes place around that thing. And they basically had to blow up a globe. The spherical thing that was nearby, they had to blow it up in order to, get the victory in the film and everything. So it's like, what? If you look at that movie with a conspiratorial tinfoil hat, flat Earth mindset, it's the movie to check out.
Oh, I'm definitely checking that. The only reason I didn't see it in the theater was the reviews on the movie itself weren't that great.
The movie was okay. But
yeah, I mean, it scored low mid 30s, something like that, and it was like, generally if it scores below 50, I won't see it unless I'm really, really into it. But I like the concept, so yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out now.
Yeah, I look at movies differently nowadays. I mean, I will go to the movie just for the pure entertainment value of it. Yeah. But these days, I'm almost more interested in saying, what are they telegraphing now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you don't use Rotten Tomatoes, do you?
Me?
Yeah, for your critic?
Yeah, I do.
Because they gave Mad Max a 97%, and they gave The Matrix 87%. Are you kidding me?
I know. Here we go on the Mad Max
thing.
I'm
done. That was the rant.
I know. I agree. We'll make sure. Yes, Mad Max should have gotten 97%. Entertaining? Yeah. Was it worth 97%? Probably not. No. Jonathan really
see why I stay quiet?
Yeah.
If I let these voices out of my head, this is where it's safer to talk.
I know. Believe me, if I would have seen 97 and went to the theater right away, I would have been disappointed too. So we're gonna go to break in just a little bit, but I swear when we get back, we're gonna talk about what I consider to be probably the most comprehensive website when it comes to everything regarding killing the whole idea of the globe, which is Rob Skiba's testingtheglobe.com, right? That's how it's spelled?
Yes.
Testingtheglobe.com. We'll have Rob break it down and let you know his inspiration about it and what he was hoping to do with it. And again, it's a massive site with a lot of content. I mean, my browser started slowing down when I was scrolling through it because of all the stuff involved. And I recommend anybody not only to check out all Rob's videos on YouTube, but definitely go to testingtheglobe.com. So we're going to be going to break here in just a few seconds. Jonathan, when we come back from the break, are you going to have any sound effects for us?
No.
You sure?
I don't think so. I'll try.
Whatever. Anyway, stay tuned. Welcome back to Strange World, where even our soundboard appears strange sometimes. I'm your host, Mark Sargent. With me, friend, at least for now, and co-host, Jonathan from Jersey, and special guest, Rob Skiba. And we are talking about his really, really good website, which is testingtheglobe.com. And I recommend to anybody who's into the flat earth thing. I know that testingtheglobe.com doesn't have flat earth in the title, which is why sometimes I think gets missed. But it is a massive compilation of data. A lot of it is looked at from the scriptural point of view, if I'm not mistaken. Right, Rob?
Correct.
Can you give me kind of what inspired you? Because when I first looked at testingtheglobe.com, it kind of felt like you were having that giant Jerry Maguire moment, where it's like, I have so much information to get out, and you just created this this massive database. Can you give me kind of breakdown of what happened?
The history of it, as others have probably heard me say, I heard you on Canary Cry.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the Monday before April 15th, whatever day that was. And I immediately came home and watched all your videos. And then I sent out an email to you, Eric Dubay, and Matt Boylan, because I started realizing there's, you guys were sort of the big names out there. Mm-hmm. And you were the first to respond. So I had you on my show probably 2 days after I first heard you.
Cool.
On that show, if you remember, I was very much saying I still believe in basically the Neil Adams expanding globe Earth theory. Mm-hmm. But I was really intrigued with what you had to say and listened to you. And after doing that interview with you, I just started looking into this stuff because I realized it was not nearly as cut and dry. And I think it was you that said, okay, go ahead and try to prove this globe thing that you believe in, but do so without using NASA.
Yeah. I didn't coin that, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, but it was either you or somebody quoting you or somebody made that challenge to me.
Yeah.
And the natural knee-jerk response is, well, we've seen the pictures.
Yep.
And as soon as I really started hopping down that bunny trail, I kept finding words like composite and finding anomalies and Photoshop clone tools being used. And the worst one is the blue marble that was put out, I think it was 2012. It's the one that at least the older iPhones and iPads, when you bought an iPad, it was the default background image.
Yeah.
That's the blue marble, I think from 2012, if I remember right. That's the one that has a lot of clone tool being used where they're replicating clouds. And I mean, it's so easy once I show it to you to see that. Yeah. But what caught my attention about that particular one is up in the upper right-hand corner of that particular marble, there's a odd-looking cloud formation that looks like sort of a backward C with a long tail that kind of wraps around the top part of the globe there. And it caught my attention because I was like, where did I see that before? I mean, just that shape. I'm like, where did I see that before? And I started looking through videos that I'd seen recently, and I saw two different videos. One I think it was on Netflix, The Universe, I think was the title of the show. And it was basically a transition, a video transition, like a wipe that was being used. They used that same Earth, but it wasn't a static picture. It was a moving, rotating globe.
Yeah.
And it had that exact same cloud formation in it. And then I started seeing it, once my eyes were open to it, I started seeing it pop up in several other videos and go, okay, how nice of NASA not only to take a picture of the Earth, but to make a perfect 3D model that videographers can use for their video productions for transitions.
Uh-huh.
And so that's when I realized, we're playing with 3D models here. This is not photographic evidence. And I, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, well, back in 2004, I got hired as a missionary, but I was a multimedia missionary. My job was to get entrenched with the missionaries, do what they do, but to document it on video, come back and make videos to help them create awareness and raise support and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So being that I was in global missions, I made a 3D model of the Earth that I used a lot. Okay, we're going to Kazakhstan. So I would do a zoom out of Addison, Texas to Kazakhstan, and I use this globe thing, as much as I use Google Earth, I use this globe that I made. Mm-hmm. And when I was comparing the globe that I made, and, when I say that, I say I made it loosely. There are tutorials that you can follow by downloading various maps from NASA and mapping them onto a ball that you create in 3D and then put the clouds on and, make it daytime, nighttime, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm creating it from scratch. I'm using available stuff. But when I did that and I would compare the globe that I made in 2006, it looked a lot better, at least in my humble and unbiased opinion, as Kent Hovind would say, than the blue marbles that were being passed off as authentic pictures of the Earth.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, look, if I can do this with off-the-shelf software that costs less than $300, what can these guys do with practically unlimited budgets,
Yep.
And so the photographic evidence was falling apart for me. Then I was thinking about the famous Apollo 17 picture that we've all seen with the continent of Africa, sticking in your face. And I had wallpaper in my bedroom that was the surface of the moon with the Earth in the background, and it was that full Earth, the full globe from Apollo 17 that we've all seen.
Yep.
But as soon as because I started thinking about that, it's in my parents' house up in Massachusetts. I'm thinking, I wonder if that wallpaper is still available. So I started combing the internet for wallpaper sites, trying to find it. And I found basically the same wallpaper, except the Earth was different. I found some of the ones that had the same picture of the Apollo 17, but the Earth was in shadow. My Earth was fully illuminated. And then I found but the foreground was exactly the same. And then I saw an updated version of that where the foreground is exactly the same as the one that I had growing up in the 70s. That it now had the blue marble superimposed on that picture with added stars and stuff. So I'm like, this is all artwork, and that at that point I'm freaking out. I'm going to space.com, I'm going to nasa.gov, and all this, by the way, is if you go to testingtheglobe.com and in the top menu it says One Man's Quest for Truth, and you click on the opening statements. This is all in the opening statements. This little story I'm telling is depicted there with your videos and the Canary Cry, and then the interview I did with you. And in part one, it's called "In Whom Do We Place Our Trust?" And that's where I've got the pictures of the wallpaper and everything. And when I go to space.com and nasa.gov and I look at alleged pictures of the Earth, the scale is completely crazy. Like in one of the pictures, the North American continent is takes up half the globe. It's huge.
Yeah.
The scale's all wrong. Other pictures, the color's all wrong. It's all crazy. And then I see the Galileo on the JPL website. I found the video taken from the Galileo space probe about 7 million miles away on December 11th, 1990, showing the Earth in 25. It's a time lapse, 25 hours of rotation.
Yep.
But none of the clouds are changing, or at least not in the. When you look at the low res video, it doesn't look like there's any movement of the clouds at all. People have since sent me higher res versions of it, but the higher res versions that they send me look too good. In other words, they don't look like 1990s technology. They look like somebody remodeled that on a better model.
Yeah.
But whatever the case may be, even if there is subtle movement in the clouds, in 25 hours there should be massive amounts of movement of cloud.
It should be huge.
Yeah, I could set my camera up for an hour and do a time lapse of an hour of cloud moving, and you're going to see a lot of things: clouds arriving, dissipating, moving all over the place, and that wasn't happening there. So now I'm intrigued because I had done an update on my first book, Babylon Rising, and the First Shall Be Last. It was about a 50-page update, and most of that was bashing on NASA and how it's a thoroughly occult organization, and all of their programs are named after pagan gods, and all that. So I had already had all that kind of framework in my mind as I'm now looking into what I thought was pretty solid evidence for the globe. And so that was the first thing. And then what should have been the first thing was I should have gone to the scriptures as somebody who trusts the scriptures as a source for truth. That should have been my first move. It was actually my second. After looking at this stuff, I looked through the scriptures, and like I said, when you look at it with an unbiased mindset, in other words, don't put your preconceived ideas onto the text. There's no way you're going to get a spinning heliocentric globe out of it.
Yeah.
So now I'm stuck, and I'm going, okay, I can't get out of this research now because I've opened up too many boxes that I've got to figure out the pieces, to this puzzle. And then everybody starts sending me all the usual arguments. And I put together part two, easy globalist arguments to refute. And it's all the knee-jerk reactions are, if it's flat, how come ships don't go off the edge of the Earth? Ha ha. What? Well, it's enclosed. Google the Antarctic coastline. You'll see why, the bird wall, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Nobody's falling off the edge. But the other one, I called it globalist argument number one, was, well, everything else we see is up there are spherical. I'm like, so? That doesn't ipso facto mean we are.
Yeah.
That's like, I say in the argument, I'm like, that's like, growing up in Asia to Asian parents where everybody and have ever seen are Asian, and automatically demanding that every human being on the planet has Asian features.
There you go.
Clearly there's a diversity of features in the human race,
Yeah.
So just because the sun, moon, and planets and everything else looks spherical, that doesn't mean that we are. Biblically speaking, all that's put up there for our benefit.
Yep.
We're the center stage main attraction. So just by that alone, we are different.
Yeah.
So and then I went to this whole list of the usual globalist arguments. How come you can circumnavigate? Well, circumnavigating a disk is exactly the same as circumnavigating a globe.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going in a circle with north as your, if you're going east, you have to keep north off to the left,
Yeah.
So that's, I went through all that, and I tried to, this was basically me thinking out loud. Because as I'm going through all this stuff, I wanted to document it so I didn't forget it. And so it started out as a really long blog, one huge blog. It was like 60 pages if you just printed that one blog out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh shoot, because I thought this was going to be kind of a quick deal for me. I'm gonna debunk it and I'm gonna move on and whatever. And then it kept growing and growing and growing. I said, well, God, I just got to go out and make a website. And so when I started looking for all the domains and coming up with ideas for domains, Testing the Globe was one I came up with that happened to be available. So I was like, perfect. So that's when I started dividing it all out into various chapters and stuff, and putting up all the people keep sending me all these videos, like the Red Bull. Everybody sends you the Red Bull.
That Red Bull video. Ugh. Yeah, go ahead.
If you want to see how fisheye lenses work, get the Red Bull video.
Yeah.
And then the Joshua, this is all the same at the same time that I'm doing all this. You got the Joshua Nowicki picture shows up on mainstream news. It was a ABC News affiliate, Channel 57. This weatherman tap dancing to try to say this is a mirage.
The Chicago skyline. Yeah.
Yeah, 60 miles away. Here's the Chicago skyline, and if you listen to the guy, I'm not convinced he believes what he's saying.
Yeah, but it probably didn't make sense to him though either. Because why can we see the skyline?
Until I found this photo from Grandmere State Park. This is from Joshua Nowicki, and what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore. We talked about this last night. Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline. Very interesting here. Here's what's happening. This is a good example of a superior mirage. So Joshua was on the Lake Michigan shore. He was looking towards the west, and Chicago's beyond the horizon. Should not be able to see it. However, with the right conditions, we have an inversion. We have cold air near the cold lake water and some relatively warmer air above it. This will bend the image of that skyline back towards the viewer. And so typically we would not be able to see this. This image would be viewable from much, much higher in the sky up in space. But instead, we're able to see it on the Lake Michigan shore. Very fascinating. And that's the same reason.
So he goes to this tap dance on mirage. Well, meanwhile, I go to San Diego, and because I was asked to be a speaker at a conference there. And of course, this is the first time I'm on an airplane having with this mindset. So, because I would have said the same as everybody, if you've ever flown in an airplane, you've seen the curvature of the earth. I mean, everybody says that. I said it. I've been in the air more times than I can count. I was a pilot for 6 years in the Army myself. And of course, as a missionary and everything else, and all my public speaking, I'm always in the air. But this time I'm in the air with intent. I'm looking out the window and I'm like, man, son of a gun, it looks flat to me. I'm taking pictures and I get home and I put the pictures in Photoshop, put a parallel bar over it, it's flat as pancake.
Yep.
Other people are telling me, well, if you've ever stood on the beach and looked out at the ocean, you've seen the curve of the earth. So I go to Malibu, I'm standing on the beach, I'm looking out, and my eyes are telling me it's curved because I've got the illusion of the land in my peripheral vision because your eye is a curved lens,
Yep.
And straight ahead, it looks flat, but in your peripheral vision, it has this illusion of dropping off. So you think that it is curved. So I did a panoramic view, in video and stills, bring it into Photoshop, put a parallel line over it, flat as a pancake. Yep. So I go up into the mountains, way up into the mountains of Malibu, looking out to probably 100 miles left to right of the ocean. And I take a picture of that, bring it into Photoshop, put a parallel bar, flat as a pancake.
Yeah.
So then I meet a guy who's helping me with the television series I'm working on, Seed. He's one of my writers. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of catching up on things and talking about the storyline. Well, he goes, so I've been watching you on Facebook and this whole flat earth thing, and I got to tell you a story. I said, okay. He said, I grew up on Ventura Beach as a lifeguard there as a kid and growing up. And he said, on a clear day, you could look out and see the Anacapa Arch. And I said, well, what's that? He's one of those island arches. It's an island, but it has a hole that, you could go through with it, like a sailboat can go under it or something,
Yeah.
And the top of the arch is about 25 feet off the water, and the top of the island is about 40 feet above the water. So about another 20 feet above the bottom of the top of the arch. So he says, but that's like 20 miles away. So when you do the spherical geometry on that, at 20 miles away, the land that you're standing on and the surface of the water, presuming you're standing at the beach, would be 266 feet below your ability to see it. So the top of the arch would be about 220 feet below your ability to see it. So I said, okay, that's based on math that people have been showing me, globalists, not flat earthers. This is globalist math.
Yeah.
I said, do you know any? I'm not mathematically inclined, so do you know anybody, or can you confirm this math? He goes, a good friend of mine is a math professor at the college over here at the university. I said, okay, great. Tell you what, run it by him as a word problem. Tell me what he says. He said, okay, this should be fun. So he goes to the guy. He says, we're supposedly on a globe that's 25,000 miles in circumference, right? Yeah. Okay, so if I wanted to know how far below the curvature an object should be that's 40 feet high and about 20 miles away, what would the math be? And, how far below the curvature should it be? So the guy does the math on the board and comes up with about 200 to 220 feet below the curvature would be the top of a 40-foot object. And so he says, okay, so by your math, you're telling me that should be over 200 feet below my ability to see it. I should not be able to see that. He goes, yep, absolutely. He says, well, the problem is we've all seen it. And the math professor says, what are you talking about? He goes, the Anacapa Arch. And all of a sudden, the guy's doing the Flintstone sound effect there, as the gerbil jumps off the wheel in his head.
I have that sound effect. It just doesn't work tonight.
You can work on that one in the background there. So this math professor turns around, looks at his blackboard at the formula that he just put up there himself in his own handwriting, and he goes, huh, right, we should not be able to see that. And so as I start putting this stuff out there, my friend Rick Hummer, he lives not too far away from where Joshua Nowicki took the picture. So he calls me up because, you know what, dude, I've been hearing what you're saying. He says, we've all seen Chicago from here. I mean, you could talk to anybody around here. We've all seen it.
Yeah.
And it's not wavy. It's not inverted. It's not distorted like you would expect for a mirage.
Yeah.
So these are the things that really got me hooked, because this doesn't require NASA, the government, or the military. This is stuff that I can go out and do myself.
Yeah.
And when you do terrestrial-based observation, like Samuel Robertson did with his book Zetetic Astronomy, it's like 300 pages of terrestrial-based observation. It's not showing up as a ball.
Yeah.
And that's basically testing the globe is my personal journey, one man's quest for truth. That's me trying to figure this stuff out. And as I'm doing it, I'm documenting it. And that's the one man quest for truth side of it. That's the first link in the main menu. The second one is gearing up for Apollo. And what I started to do with that is after I did the Bible and the still flat Earth portion of it, and I never finished this in our prior talk earlier in this show, talking about the stars falling to Earth.
Yeah.
When I started looking into, okay, where's the disconnect here? What's the Bible really saying? And I realized that the Bible refers to angels as stars, repeatedly, in fact. And the book of Enoch tells you point blank, there's a class of luminaries that are angels, sentient beings called the luminaries that are stars. And there's an angelic police officer, basically, named Raguel. And his job is to make sure that those angels stand in formation and march in the pattern that God told them to march in, essentially for 6 God days. A day with the Lord is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is a day, 6,000 years. They're basically commanded to march in formation in a very specific pattern. And if they don't, there's a terrible, horrible place of punishment awaiting them. So as I'm reading all that, and I'm looking and saying, well, biblically and extra-biblically speaking, at least in the Hebrew cosmology, the stars are angels. And if you take the Bible from that perspective, then all those scriptures talking about the dragon's tail is going to scoop 1/3 of the stars and throw them down the earth. Well, we know 1/3 followed Lucifer. So there you got 1/3 of those angels going with him. And then basically when Jesus decides to rip the sky open, he's bringing the rest of them with him, for the big showdown at the end. So things start making a whole lot more sense, biblically, cosmologically speaking, if I take it literally in that regard. So then I started thinking, okay, I've got to put together a timeline. Like, where did all this start to go off? And, everybody talked about Pythagoras and Eratosthenes, as the early guys. And then, of course, you get to Copernicus and Galileo and eventually Newton. And, the rest is history, as they say. So that's the gearing up for Apollo thing, is I'm starting to go back to who these other guys. And Eratosthenes just really, just to be frank, pissed me off. Because here's this guy, he's looking at, something in a well, and then he looks at an obelisk, and the shadow is like straight down. And then he knew at the same time of the day, like 80 or 100 or 200 miles or whatever it was away, there's another obelisk that has a long shadow. Mm-hmm. And I got a clip of Carl Sagan in his usual pompous way describing it and saying the only way this is possible, is if we're on a globe, if we're on a ball. And I'm screaming at the screen going, that's not the only way it's possible. Because, if we're on a ball with a light source that's stationary, direct away from you, and it's pointing directly at one part of the ball, and so the shadow's straight down, sure, on the curve, the other shadow is going to have a long shadow. Yeah. But in the biblical flat earth model, you're on a flat plane with two obelisks, and you've got a much smaller, much closer sun that's moving. Yeah. So if that much closer and smaller sun is over one obelisk, the shadow's going to be straight down, and it's going to cast a long shadow for the other one. So the stick in the ground experiment is totally useless. Yeah. It doesn't prove anything. And you look at these other guys, they're Apollo sun god worshippers and, all that. But they're coming up with things that they had no way to prove. Yeah. Sure, if you put two sticks in the ground on a ball and you continue the line down to the center, you can come up with a mathematical theorem that would explain that. And he came up with, based on those distances, the globe that he assumed would be 25,000 miles in circumference. Well, that's the same argument. One of the globalist arguments is, well, you can draw a 90-degree triangle on a ball, so that proves that we're on a globe. No, it doesn't. It proves you draw a triangle on a ball. It doesn't prove anything. So congratulations, Eratosthenes. You can prove that, assuming you're on a ball, you put a stick on one end and the other, and you draw a line in the center, you can figure out the circumference. Congratulations. Yay. You didn't prove anything on the Earth. And there's no way you could have, because, this is, 200 or whatever BC, and we didn't even achieve reasonable altitudes until the 20th century. Yep. So, and then, by the time you get to as the timeline advances through the 1800s, you get Charles Lyell looking at a bunch of lines in the rock strata and saying, I think that represents millions of years. No proof, no evidence, nothing whatsoever, just a pure assumption. And Darwin says, hey, I think that's a cool idea because I believe we came from monkeys. Oh, awesome, dude. They shake hands and partner up with Huxley. And, now everybody thinks, wow, they get this perfect circular reasoning going on where they could say, well, that fossil's from the Jurassic period. Well, how do you know? Well, because we found it in the Jurassic layer of rock. Well, how do you know that's the Jurassic layer of rock? Well, because we found Jurassic fossils there. It's like classic circular reasoning. Yep. But Charles Lyell basically threw out the biblical chronology and cast the age of the earth in question. And Darwin threw out the made in the image and likeness of God. So now, he's thrown that out. So basically there's this massive assault to discredit God and the creation account, basically to demolish the book of Genesis, which is the foundation upon which everything else is resting. Yeah, so if you get rid of Genesis, then the whole thing crumbles. So now I'm saying, okay, here's a motive, because people are like, well, what would be the motive of NASA and the government and whatever to lie to us? I'm like, well, you got to think a little bit larger than just NASA and the government. Most of these guys are Luciferians. They're in secret societies. They're doing all these practices, things that revolve around the worship of Lucifer or various demonic entities, Baphomet and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So the larger question is, we need to examine the ancient motive. And that's when I used to go all the way back to Tower of Babel. You've got a great video on that on one of your Flat Earth Clues. Yep. That was brilliant. And
hey, Rob, I hate to do this to you, but we are running out of time. I got to have you back. Plug whatever you want. You got 20 seconds.
Well, that's on the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, is on Gearing Up for Apollo in that section of testingtheglobe.com. You can read more of it there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Rob. We're going to definitely have you back on soon to finish stuff. Thanks, everybody.
Good stuff, Rob.
Here. We will see you guys next time.
See you soon.